Hey everyone, welcome to my living room. It's an honor to be here with you and to have you here. I've been seeing people walking around, and I've been seeing myself in my imagination, and I see us walking around in these bubbles. And we can't see them, but there are our presence. They're our presence that surrounds us. And we're the protector of this bubble. And as we travel through life, even in this isolation, as we travel through our life, there are people that pass us in this bubble, and that's where the friction of identity happens. So I want to talk this morning to you, wherever you're at, about expanding and about contracting and the rhythm of our response to this outside world. So just outside this bubble, there's the continuum of past and future. And this continuum exists around us all the time, just outside this bubble. And sometimes it can steal us away. And if we go too far out where we were, or where we think we're going, or where we want to go, if we go too far ahead or behind, we lose our presence. And we mentally project ourselves into this outer darkness. And then there's a vacancy that happens in this bubble that we once filled up. There's a vacancy and you're not there. So whether you're present in this presence is what I want to talk about. And how when we're in this outer darkness, when we get lost in this outer darkness, it's all smoke and mirrors. Some argue it's real, some argue it's not. Something is just a mental projection, something hangs on. It's a lot of things going on, and sometimes that's where our identity can sometimes take a life of its own, and it gets confusing out there. But if we come back in to this small bubble that we fill, we can fill it back up with warmth, no matter where we are, as we look at each other, as we're here together. In this isolated period, I have begun to be a part of the Zoom digital culture, and I previously wasn't a huge part of the online world. I don't have a lot of social media, but I've begun to feel this presence here. And so this is still real. We are still here together. So I want you to see yourself coming back in and filling up so that you can be responsive to what is. So you can accept it, so you can forgive, so you can be here. Things look different from many different perspectives. If you think about a lion as it's hunting its prey, it seems very scary and violent and messy. But if you hear an astronaut talk about the way our Earth looks from space, from the vast expanse of darkness and lifelessness, you see this bubble of life. You see this being, a balanced dance of life. And this life it's in scale, and it comes from meta to macro levels, micro to macro levels. This bubble exists in this outer darkness. And so a few months ago, I had an experience that felt a lot like this. I was leaving school where I was dropping my kids off, and I was late. And usually everyone's in my way when I'm late. I don't know why that is. Mm-hmm. You're driving around and you're getting worked up. And I was at this stoplight. I was getting ready to merge onto the highway, and I had the right of way. But there was a guy from the other side of the road who just cuts me off. And I have a little bit of road rage inside of me. I worked on the road for a while, so that feeling started to come up, and I was going to exhibit some road rage and teach this guy a lesson. And I have many ways of doing that. My wife thinks these ways are dangerous. I don't, and I'm trying to fix it. And in this instant, it kind of fixed itself. When I was about to go into this feeling, I immediately snapped into a vision of the earth differently, of my existence differently in relation to this guy. And I saw the roads that I was driving on as veins carrying blood cells of this being. And I was a blood cell, and he was a blood cell. And immediately I felt there was no anger for one blood cell going in front of the other and for it having its flow. We're both going the same way. We're both bringing life to this being that we are a part of. And this feeling, this road rage, this anger that was welling up in me, it just fell away, and I didn't have to do anything about it. It was gone. So years ago, I thought I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to like sing and play, and so my wife and I, we got married very young. We were already married. We had a kid. We were going to go to Europe, and we were going to make a career. It was like in 2008. It's not a great time to try and start a new career, but we sold our house and all of our things, and we took our 2-year-old and all the profits we made, and we moved to Germany. And it was an extreme experience. But long story short, 3 months later, we were back home with nothing. I think it's a bit of a hard thing when you're letting go, when you're putting that identity out in front of your presence. And when it starts to fall apart, I think those are the best moments in life. And so this is one of those moments. I felt like I was living in reverse. You know, I had no home, and I had this son and my wife, and we were moving in with my in-laws, Megan's parents, and a bit of a failure in my life. So I started digging around and reading and trying to figure out what I'm doing. And I had this feeling I wanted to go back to school. Now I'm really in reverse. I'm going back to college. I have this family. I don't know what's going on. Everything's everywhere. First semester back in school, and we find out we're pregnant with our second. There are these times when you make these plans, and then they change drastically. And this is one of those times we talked about it, and we decided I should continue. So I continued. But that first month, when she was born, 3 days ago, it was very difficult. There were some medical issues, and it was one of the darkest times of our lives. We were hanging right on the edge. And I used to be the kind of person previous to this, it was always ahead of the game, ahead of the ball, always prepared. I was second born between 2 brothers, so I had my game on. I knew how to defend myself, and I knew how to be in the right spot. But suddenly I was in a spot that was out of my control, and I was behind. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to go back to school in the adult time of life, but it's a lot. So I was barely hanging on. I had this one project in English class where I had to write this poem. And it sounds crazy. You're like going through this really dark time, and you got to sit down and write a poem for a grade. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and the poem is due at 9 o'clock the next morning. And so I go out into the loft, and I lay down on the floor with my notebook. And this statement pops in my head that I had just told Megan in the room a couple weeks earlier. And I went back to that moment, and I was watching her, and she was crying and sitting in the seat, and we were looking out the window, and there were no leaves on the trees yet. And it felt so isolated. And when you're the husband in that kind of situation, it's hard to know what to do because you can't fix it. And so, as like most husbands do, we say the wrong thing. And I said, enjoy it, it'll be over soon. And it hit me so heavy because it seems like a kind of statement you're supposed to say when everything's going well, when you're at a party or when you're having fun. It's like, enjoy it, it'll be over soon. And in this instance, I had this overwhelming sense of freedom. but I could choose to enjoy now. And I knew in me that if I didn't choose to enjoy it now, then I never would. That it's not only the good times that you can choose to enjoy, it's now that you choose to enjoy. And so after I said that to her, it worked on me. It worked on me. And so I wrote it in that poem, and it came out in like 15 minutes, and it just repeated, "Enjoy, it'll be over soon," every few lines. And I've lived by that statement for years now. So you fast forward a little into the future, and I'm carrying this ability to respond to any situation, this responsive identity, that the only thing that we have control of is how we respond. And I knew that whatever came, I could enjoy it because I saw life passing so fast. And I knew now was the time to enjoy it. And so when Megan and I, after I got out of school, it did pass. The darkness passed, and we were back in the moment, back in the move, back in the grind of building a business. And we were coming together to do a creative meeting. And we had this new little team forming. We were working with a designer named TJ Smith. He's on this call. And we were working with Danny, who was our new project manager. And it was all this new. And we were sitting down to name a company for one of our clients. And 2 minutes before this meeting, I get this email that just devastated me. And Megan got it. And it was literally like, "I'm done. I have nothing. I'm out." I was like, "How can I be out? I got to have this meeting." I wanted to just like quit the whole thing. And I don't even remember who this email was from. I literally cannot remember what email it was or who it was from, which goes to show you that sometimes we're focusing on this heaviness and we look back and we can't remember what it was. Maybe it's a distraction. Anyway, in the moment, it was heavy. And so I didn't know what to do. Megan's like, "Why don't we just start this meeting out with 60 seconds of silence?" Which, if you know me and my family, there is no silence. If I wouldn't have been at that point of having nothing, nowhere to turn, I would have said no. But I didn't know what to do. So I said, "Okay, let's do it." So we opened the meeting. Danny's on Skype, which we were using back then, not Zoom. And TJ's there in our little tiny office with no windows. And we just closed our eyes. And I was freaking out. I was like, "They're hating this. This is so awkward. What in the world? This is terrible." And all of a sudden this thought came into my mind. It said, "Try it. Just fucking try it." And immediately at that moment, I went 1,000 years in the future. This is the craziest experience I've ever had. I literally went 1,000 years in the future, and I saw my life, this project, my life, my kids' life, their kids' lives. I saw them all roll through. Everything finished so well, and it was done. And I looked back, and instantly, I came back into myself, and I looked around, and I'm filled with this nostalgia. It's like I got to come back to this moment. I got to live it again. And I looked around, and there was like this old printer. It looked like ancient technology, and this clock was clicking on the wall. And I looked at Megan, and she was so young. And TJ, I was like, we were working with TJ. This was back when we were here. And it's like I had this opportunity to go back and do this again. It was interesting because I tried to rehearse this part yesterday too, and I cried the same way. It was interesting how I could see the right things. When I saw everything roll out and I knew it was going to be okay, I was okay being in the moment. I was okay filling up my presence. I was okay being in this moment of creativity. And actually, I felt this weird sense of connection. I feel like I already knew TJ. I feel like I already knew Danny, like I had already worked with them. And we were there together and we had this chance, and it was a light, fun, creative meeting. And it stayed with me. And so now I call it my time travel trick. When I'm sitting with my kids and I'm playing Legos and I'm thinking about the outside of this bubble. When I think about the work and the future and the past, there's this vacancy. In me, it's like I'm not there, and I'm not there for them in this fun little moment where we could be playing Legos and nothing's really wrong in that present moment. But I leave my presence. But I do this little time travel trick and I go way into the future and I come back and I see them and they're so little and they're so young. And I'm like, you're here. In that moment, I can sit in patience with what is. I can sit in presence, and I can be responsive to who they are in that moment. When you live in this outer darkness, this continuum of past and future, your presence starts to contract down until it gets smaller and smaller. And soon, no one else can enter it. Soon, it's just as small as your body. And then it starts to get smaller and smaller until it's a hard and tight center of loneliness and isolation. And you've been vacant from your presence for so long that there's an extreme emptiness. And there's no response. There's only paralyzed fear, regrets. So try this next time, because I know there's going to be a next time. We're in some very, very hard times. See yourself expanding. Expand. Fill up that presence. Be present in that presence. Let your identity not be something you're trying to figure out. Let it be something you're experiencing. Let it be something that's responding to what's happening right there. And as you do this, like what I've begun to see is that my presence gets bigger and bigger, and it allows more room for people to enter. And it's warm, and it's something that I can make warm. So when you feel that friction, when you feel lost in the past and the future, and you're going around this thing, and this darkness is taking you over, try this. Close your eyes, go to the future, and come right back. And let yourself be filled with this nostalgia of where you are, almost like you'd already lived it. And you'll find your identity is connected to all those around you where you are. It's connected to each other. We're connected. Just at the beginning of this talk, I got nervous and I missed this one line that I wanted to repeat. And I didn't know how to do it. So I'm just going to do it now, just because I feel like it needs to happen. This is a good day. This is a good day. This is a good day. Say it with me.
Got it.
Good day.
It's a good day.
Joyce said that.
It's a good day.
It's a good day.
Great day.
Good day. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, David.
Good day.
Good day. We brother.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. It's a good day.
How you, Tim?
Awesome.
Birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yes, thank you, Tim.
Birthday.